Greetings, boys, girls, and that technicolored rainbow in between. It is I, your host, Rehash, and welcome back to the Gentleman's Chat. Let's not waste any more time. We have solo farming to take care of. The chapter begins where we last left off, where Park Soo-jin is trying to convince Theo here to become his employee to sell his product. Soo-jin pulls out all the stops in order to sweet-talk our precious little kitty boy into trying to sell his product by any means necessary. Though the original script that he planned seems to be heavily in his favor, and Theo is able to recognize it, and he refuses. But thankfully for Sejun, Theo is an idiot, and can be sweet-talked and bribed very easily. And considering that Theo was already tricked by several demons already, Park Soo-jin is just straight up the devil. So he sweetens the deal even further. Even though it's very unfavorable for Theo in the long run, at the moment, all he's thinking of is fish. The one weakness of any cat. You know, I feel like Theo is the type of character that gets screwed over in the moment, but ends up becoming super important in the longevity. Possibly becoming a Hercule Satan or Mr. King, or even a Buggy the Clown archetype later on. So after Sejun plays into Theo's weaknesses, he ends up signing a contract that is incredibly unfavorable to him, and he only realizes it after the fine print has been pressed in stone. And so now Theo is now Sejun's employee, whether he likes it or not. So he asks what exactly is he going to be selling. So that's when Sejun reveals his cherry tomatoes. The cherry tomatoes are magic items, of course, and they're decent consumables, though low grade. Mostly trash items. And Sejun wants to sell them for a ridiculous price, which shocks Theo. But Theo thinks that this is good in the long run, because if they're sold at a ridiculous price, he won't be able to sell them, which will terminate the contract because he wouldn't be able to fulfill his place in argument, and it wouldn't even be his fault. So he agrees and takes as many cherry tomatoes as he can, and decides to leave off for the lower levels so he can trade and exchange goods. Little did Theo realize just how crucial his role will be in the complete overturning of the entire tower from the ground up, and it will all be on him. We laid a hard cut to a group of unknown, unnamed adventurers who are currently fighting a giant spider, and they managed to successfully beat it. I would care about their victory, but I don't know who these people are, so therefore I don't. But as soon as their victory is at hand, they get approached by a strange visitor. It is in fact Theo, and there's no one stranger. Well, no one in the room. They ask him what he's all about, and he says he's a wandering merchant and he has wares to sell. They of course become curious and want to see what he's got. And that's when he showcases his cherry tomatoes, which is a very lukewarm reception. They don't really think too much of it, until they realize it's magic items, not just food. They take a close look and realize, even if it is magic items, for the price, they're not worth it. So they try to move on. Except for one who notices the fine print. While the magical supply is very moot point for these magic items, the other effect they have is 10 grams of weight lost with one cherry tomato each. It's not a magic item, it's a weight loss item. Guaranteed minimal effort. No effort, in fact, all you do is eat. So obviously this throws everybody into a tizzy, demanding as many cherry tomatoes as they possibly can carry, with the amount of gold they have, paying in the thousands to try to get as many of these cherry tomatoes as possible. And the party's stir craziness attracts other party members and other adventurers trying to get their hands on this new weight loss project. Just as Park Soo-jin had predicted would happen. Anyone will want the ultimate weight loss tool. Don't you just love it when you got a monopoly on the ultimate cure for weight loss? Gotta respect that hustle. So we start off with the next chapter, where Senji's just hanging out with his bunny bros in his farm like a baller, discussing the percentage of his new abilities and how they affect the plant growth. When we cut to the Black Rabbit as he's taking down Piranha like a baller, and then, all of a sudden, he gets surrounded in a blue light as he levels up. I guess monsters can level up here too. I suppose, why wouldn't they, but...
Actually, that's a really good idea for Dungeons & Dragons monsters. I should write that down!
Well, to celebrate the Black Rabbit's level up, our boy Senjin decides to break out some coffee. Well, it's instant coffee, and it's probably tastes like shit. But considering that the boy has literally drank nothing but water for the past months, I assume that any different flavor would be tasting like divine wine. Even though, compared to the rabbits, when they taste it, they all say it tastes like shit. But the celebration of the Black Rabbit isn't the only thing to celebrate, as our little honeybee has decided to move in. Just enjoying the wholesomeness, no need to worry about Rule 34 of the bee. Well, Park Senji does get a notice from the tower manager requesting more cherry tomatoes immediately, but the death threats are no longer present as they're replaced with management disappointment. Senji definitely notices the change, and he thinks finally the tower manager is starting to see him as less of a liability and more of a asset, as well as his importance in gathering even greater strength in the tower. But he does comply with the request, because why not? And then we cut back to the original goblin. If you forget, this is the goblin that tricked Theo into buying a bunch of useless earth junk in exchange as a token of helping. But it turns out this goblin's plan was a lot more sinister in the long run. Apparently, it was all about control, putting Theo in his debt, and forcing him to become his slave, allowing him to rise to the ranks of the Wandering Merchanthood, and giving him a higher position and status. Because, of course, the goblin. But he does seem somewhat surprised, as Theo hasn't returned back yet, and his plan doesn't seem to be working. Though it matters little, as he's just made the top 1,000 wandering merchants in the entire tower, which is a big deal. And he's proud of himself. For a total of 5 seconds, as Theo has outranked the bastard. And he wants to know how he did it. Who is Theo? Oh, where's a goblin slayer when you need one? Well, we cut back to Theo, who is returning to Park Sejun a lot earlier than scheduled. Theo acts like he was in trouble for whatever reason because he didn't return earlier, but Sejun is more surprised that he's back so soon after all of the cherry tomatoes he brought. He brought over 1,000, and yet they're all sold at max price that he set? He knew they would be popular, but he had no idea how popular they could be. And this sparks him to be incredibly happy and thankful for his little kitty friend. And he's excited to exploit him even more in the future. Now that people know who he is with his magical items, right? Well, apparently that's not how it works. You see, apparently Park Sejun was given some false information, because he believes that everybody will know about his great achievement with the cherry tomatoes, but there's just one flaw with his plan. While Theo does have the items listed as Park Sejun's, they're blurred out for anyone because of him, specifically his rank as a low-ranking merchant. Low-ranking merchants have their sources for income crossed out so that mid and high-level merchants can't take advantage of their product. In other words, no one knows Sejun is the one who produces the cherry tomatoes. And Theo gets freaked out that if he ever finds out, he himself would be in trouble. So he has only one solution. Sell as many as he possibly can and raise his rank. Well, at least he's dedicated to the cause. Even though it terrifies him if Sejun would ever figure out the truth. And, well, that's 2 chapters. And that was solo farming in the tower, the next 2 chapters. And nothing particularly super important happened, nothing groundbreaking, but it does set up a bit of a foreground for future events to come. The cherry tomatoes have officially left the floor and are now in the possession of the players, and they are to die for. They are slowly becoming the most popular item in the entire tower for weight loss, and Senjin and Theo have a monopoly on every single one. Time will only tell just how this will affect the ecosystem of the entire tower, as well as the rest of the world. But until that happens, I'm Rehash, the Sterler of Chaos, and this has been another Gentleman's Chat. I'll see you next time.